Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, a show trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. I am a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist, and I am also uh, the father of an ADHD, of actually a couple of ADHD kids who are now adults. I apparently married into a whole family full of ADHD, and I also have a private practice, and I have been working with ADHD folks for almost 40 years. Anyway, one of the big debates, I guess, in the whole world of ADHD is it a handicap or is it a gift of some sort that endows you with great powers of creativity, um, and the ability to hyper focus and so on. And you can look at it both ways. Russell Barkley, who's one of the premier researchers in the field of ADHD, says there's no doubt in his mind it is a handicap, um, and people suffer, da 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 da. And how can you give them a 504 plan in school if it's not a handicap? Okay. And then we have Ned Hollowell, who is a psychiatrist and clinician, and he tries to always present it as a gift. You have, I've forgotten what his exact quote is, something on the order of, you have a Maserati engine, but bicycle brakes. Simplistic, but, creative and probably appeals to patients. And the other thing is, Barclay says, well, how can you give accommodations in school if it's not a handicap? And there is probably the crux of the problem. ADHD into the standard American type classroom. The the system is not designed for an ADHD brain. Okay, the system is for people who pay attention and do what they're told, basically. And if you have any problems with any of those things, you're going to have a horrible time in our school system. And this is systemic. Um, it's not that we have bad teachers. I mean, God Lord, you must, know, the good Lord knows you have to be dedicated to put up with being a teacher nowadays. Where you're getting all kinds of conflicting demands on you without any science backing it up. I mean, let's face it, the education system is designed by politicians. Politicians don't know jack about education or educational theory, neuropsychology, neuroanatomy, none of that stuff. Um, and of course, that never slows them down, and they still do. We got everything from people who want to go back to when they used to have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and milk the cows, to reversing everything we have learned, science has learned in the last 50 years. I mean, it's it's a big problem. Let's put it that way. But the big deal is, if you have ADHD, you're going to have problems, because what do they ask you to do? They ask you to sit quietly, don't wiggle around, don't get up, don't let out a yell, pay attention to what the teacher's teaching, um, And she doesn't necessarily, or he doesn't necessarily get any negative points for being god awful boring. And then you have to be able to gurge. I'm not going to go there. You're going to have to give her back or him back the stuff that they have taught over the last 3 or 4 weeks, something like that. I mean, those are all things that ADHDers have a lot of trouble with. A lot of trouble. The difficulties with working memory, the difficulties with attention and focus, on and on and on, make this method of learning very difficult. Okay, and there are, when you break down the way people's brains work with information, there are a number of different preferences, Like, I do particularly well with words, I used to joke, just give me the book and get out of my way and I'll do fine on the test. And that's true. That's true. It's been my whole academic career. Well, except for that period of time with the Budweiser and so on. But other than that, it was not a problem for me to get grades. My wife is a more visual spatial person. She actually sees pictures of things. And these are not hallucinations. These are just, that's the way she puts information, codes it so she can work with it. And somehow that makes her great at accounting. I don't exactly understand the connection. But she claims it works that way. And some people can't learn a thing unless they actually put hands on something and make something. I swear you wouldn't have nearly as many high school kids saying, what am I going to do with fucking algebra? I'm never going to use that. If you assigned them to a carpenter and had them build a storage shed in the backyard or something, when they saw how much math you needed to use, including geometry and algebra, probably some calculus too, but that would end that. And they'd see the point of it, ADHDers with the kind of problems they have in focusing and the whole working memory thing, which if you're not familiar with that concept, working memory is sort of the etch-a-sketch of memory. It's where you hold information that you don't really plan to keep for very long. It's like the boss tells you to go do this, this, and this. Okay, and you get to the storeroom or wherever you needed to go and you do this and this and you can't remember what the other one was. That's working memory. And most of us will have difficulties with that as we age. You just, your brain doesn't hold the information very, very well. And you're not demented, it's just the normal part of aging. So that problem with working memory and so on makes it hard for ADHD kids to sit and listen to a lecture for 40 minutes or whatever and retain much. Okay, working memory is also important in learning. When you hear some new information, your brain keeps it in working memory, while another part of your brain goes looking through the long-term memory storage, sort of like they're going through a file cabinet or something, until they find the right folder, the one that's got significantly similar information. I like that, significantly similar. Anyway, so that, and then the information goes from working memory to there. Except if you've forgotten the new information, that means you have a choice. You can either go back and look it up again, reread that chapter, or, look at your notes, hope to God you made good notes, or you just forget it. It wasn't that important, probably. Might not be in the test, So, in the school system, the way our school systems are designed, the way our school curriculum is designed, ADHDers are at a handicap. There is absolutely zero doubt about it. But so they, they deserve the accommodations they get. But that doesn't mean there aren't areas of life, vocations, in different areas, they can they can find a fit, but they have to have the confidence to do it, and that's where I come in. I'm real big on not beating these kids over the head and having them, grow to maturity with absolutely zero confidence, because they can't survive that way. Because they're gonna need to be able to take chances, to try stuff out, that sort of thing, before they can do well or find their little magic mystery slot where they will, do well, become a Steve Jobs maybe, or, well, they're the Bill Gates maybe. Anyway, they're ADHDers tend to think a little differently than people with neurotypical brains. They tend to be a little more creative. Maybe it's because they don't have a choice, because they're not very good at not being creative, and so they've got to be in a situation where they can, certain jobs you can't say big job labels, big whole categories of work they can't do, because there are usually deviations within that. Like, in the area I live in, well, let me put it this way: practicing law, being a lawyer, is really one of those things that works your ability to maintain a lot of details in your head, and your working memory needs to be sharp, and your attention needs to be sharp, generally. Okay, especially if you're just, you're going to do, I'm not sure what they call that kind of law, where you're just mostly handling wills and estates and that kind of stuff. But I know this for a fact: an easy half of the trial lawyers, and these are guys doing liability and criminal law and that sort of stuff, are ADHD. I know this because I've worked with their children. So the deal, though, is that kind of stuff that requires quick thinking and quick reaction and all that other stuff, they're good at that. So, they can turn on a dime and win a court case. But looking over spreadsheets, accounting records, probably not. Probably that's not where you would expect them to find a strength. So it's all in how you fit into the context. It's all in how you set it up. And then as a parent, you've got to be careful, because if you have a lot of prejudices, no kid of mine will ever be a psychologist. Or, no kid of mine's going to try to play professional athletics or whatever. It's, oh, well, my uncle was in retail, my cousin was in retail, my grandfather was in retail, so my son's going to go into retail. Might not be a good fit. I mean, sometimes it is, no doubt about it, but it might not be a good fit. So you can't go have your prejudices, your predisposed, prejudice, you prejudged, you have set up something that you want without taking into account what your child's strengths and weaknesses are. And that'll be a problem whether or not your kid has ADHD or not, I mean, it's just, you have to analyze, look at what you've got, figure out what his or her gifts are, what his or her interests are, and, make decisions and encourage them whichever way they want to go. Instead of, well, no, I started to get myself into serious trouble. Never mind that. So whether how big a handicap ADHD is more a matter of context than just something everybody was born with and everybody's going to react the same way. And that's a big distinction to make, to keep, especially if you're talking about your kids or you're working with somebody else's kids. You've got to understand that. So the work of an ADHD parent is finding the interests, finding the talents, and going with those, even if it doesn't fit into the school system very well. Okay, that's me for today. Sorry about being a little late today. Sometimes this stuff doesn't flow the way I'd like it to. But okay, we will catch you next week, same time. I have some questions out for anybody who's paying attention and would like to help me out a little bit. I would like to know when the absolute best time for you to hear this show would be. Is it in the morning? Is it a weekday? Is it in the afternoon? Is it on a weekend? That sort of thing. So if you'd let me know about that, I'd appreciate it. And I'd like to know also, I know we have a lot of moms in this audience. I'd like to know how many are married to somebody with ADHD. If we could, get that would help me out. I'm planning some things, so it would be helpful. I appreciate it. Okay, we'll catch you next week.